What happens when you tell incomplete parts of our history? I feel like this may have happened with Findlay Market, a magical place that sits in between historically black neighborhoods like Over the Rhine and the West End, among others. With so much of Cincinnati's cultural history pointing back to its German roots, it often ignores the contributions black people have made on the city over time, before being gentrified and displaced, of course. And we aren't pointing blame here. Findlay Market is amazing. But I'm not sure if we can fully appreciate all the wonderful things it offers without first recognizing all of those who contributed to its legacy.
Wait, put it over here.
Gosh, that thing is heavy. That's when we got the key to the city. That was our pastor
Back then. That's Mark Mallory. He was the
He's the
mayor.
mayor.
And that's me. That's my mama, and that's my daddy's brother. They started out together, but my daddy bought him out. His brother, Charles Hudson. Our father had a lawyer, Judge Dambrell. He took my father to Cleveland, and he was one of the first black men in Cincinnati to get a small business loan.
That's when they tore down the old West End. They moved. That's how come we moved on Elm Street. They relocated us.
Oh wow. Okay. And what do you remember when that was, the relocation of?
That was back in the 50s. But when we moved down there, it was mostly old Germans and a lot of white people. And
Tell about the owner. The guy came in.
this guy came in. He had on bib overall. That thing like a bib thing.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "I want to speak to the boss. I want to talk to the boss." I said, "Well, there he is, right there." And he turned red as a beet.
That is old. How old was you out here?
Shoot, I don't know, about 8 or 9 or something.
Your hair looks good though. I
Got a
like
head
it.
full of hair.
And that's my mother and father.
He was a deacon in church.
Everybody loved my dad. Nobody ever said anything bad against him, or you know what I'm saying. But they say he was born before his time. But we had all kind of people: doctors, lawyers, policemen, firemen. I mean, everybody came down there. They came from Kentucky and Dayton. Because Daddy he made people's clothes. He was a tailor, and a lot of them would come there and get their clothes made.
My mother and my sisters moved here from Louisville, Kentucky. I wasn't even born yet. And we lived on 1639 Vine from the time I was born until I believe my mother and I moved to the West End when I was a junior in high school. So like my whole first part of my life was downtown.
And from what you can remember, just like paint a picture of what it was like.
Oh wow, Asa, it would be the most colorful picture imaginable.
Before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. When you hear all this talk about the West End and Over the Rhine, we're talking about residential neighborhoods that sit right here and here. Both of them are about a mile away from Findlay Market, which is here. Okay.
It was the neighborhood that older people talk about. The neighborhood where you could leave your doors unlocked. If your child was being bad, Miss Maddie whooped your child, and Miss Gloria whooped your child, and then they walked her home and you whooped your child. It was the truest definition of a village, raising a child that you can imagine. Everybody knew everybody, and everybody kept a keen eye to strangers coming into the neighborhood. We wasn't mean to them, but everybody kept a close eye on them because we didn't know who they was. And most of the people been there for years. So You knew who you could trust.
In our community, it was more a family. I had 5+ brothers, right? That wasn't even my real brothers, but it was just the family of it. Everybody looked out for each other. Everything I knew at that particular moment was downtown. You could walk to the Kroger, you could walk to the market. Everything you kind of need was there, and that made me happy as a person. I want to say hood rich, but it gave me that rich feeling inside to where I didn't need anything more, right, at that moment.
Like, as I look back, I wouldn't say, oh, I wish I had everything that I needed.
Yeah.
We had everything we needed. And my mother was a single parent, but we never lacked for anything. And if we did, I don't know.
Just living down there, it was like a family. If you was running low on food, the community would come together. Like a couple neighbors would get together and they'd make sure this household had food to feed their kids. And I think as I'd moved away from that, I miss it, because it's like here with my neighbors, even though it's quiet, it's peaceful, I just feel like it's really a distance. And I don't know if that's just the world or, like I said, because when I was feeling that union and that coming togetherness, I was in Over the Rhine.
There's something special about that, though. Using words like peaceful and union. Those might not be the same words that folks on the outside would use to describe it, but you're saying that it was an amazing time, an amazing spirit.
You didn't have no worries. As kids, I feel like you never have any worries really as a kid, right? You just kind of living in the moment. We had a Dixie cup lady, we had a penny cup. It was just like living in the moment. So it was until I moved to Bond Hill and I went to Woodward High School. To where you from? Downtown. It's like, you live downtown? Like, that's when it became, your nose got turned up. You live downtown? Y'all had roaches and stuff? Like, that's when it became a difference.
To fully understand the market, I think it helps to step back and look at how Cincinnati as a city grew and to see what guided that growth over time.
This is a Mary Barr Rhodes. I have several pieces from Mary Barr Rhodes. She's a local artist. She has a studio at Pendleton. So that's her piece. That's one of her pieces. And Cincinnati in general, but specifically Over the Rhine, tells the universal story of the push and pull of migration and immigration in our country. So the story of a family coming over for a better life or fleeing persecution, starting businesses here. As the second, third generation builds up some wealth, they start moving out to better housing and better opportunities. And then things like World War I drove Germans out. So then you have other groups that kind of fill in then. So we have an Appalachian influx of people, and following them because of urban renewal and the great migration from the South, we have an African American population that's in the West End that literally gets pushed out. So you see this cycle in Over the Rhine of prosperity and then a decline. And now we're back at kind of a prosperity again. We've, now apartments down here are pretty unaffordable for most people. But at every one of those points, people get, there's winners and losers. People get pushed out, people come in.
What were some go-to spots for you? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. The Hub, which is the recreation center, it's still there. It's still operational. They had an Olympic swimming pool, so I was there in the summers. They had a skating rink.
The only outlet I did was called the Lincoln Center. Lincoln Center was free for the community kids, the low poverty kids who lived in that neighborhood. Go there, you learn how to play tennis, you shot pool, you went on field trips once a week.
Another place everybody went was the Regal Cinema.
Oh, right.
Okay? Now, the Regal Cinema is historic. Okay? My mother told me James Brown performed there. The Isley Brothers, Aretha Franklin. I mean, it was a theater back then. It wasn't a movie theater. It was a broad, right, it was theater. And, that's how Bootsy Collins came up on his big thing. James Brown pulled him in as a bass player. Cincinnati's been generated with not just black talent, but white and black talent for years. Then Main Street wasn't safe to walk down after 11 o'clock. Nor was 12th and Vine, okay? 12th and Vine, now you got Taste of Belgium right there on that corner. Washington Park, that was the school with a swimming pool, okay?
It's just kind of nostalgic even talking about it, but yeah, just remember the smell of that chlorine and just the park and how, just the park being, just even being a kid and maybe seeing a homeless person or just, it just was it was, not to say it was no big deal, but it was comfortable. It was life. It was like, this is us.
It was unwritten rule that even with the West End and over the Rhine, Central Parkway was that boundary, okay? You better have some relatives over there, okay? Everybody knew your spot, and your neighborhood was your neighborhood. And the only spot there was a neutral zone, because number one, you only went there when you were with your parents, was Findlay Market.
Yeah, my mother went, she went every Saturday. Every Saturday morning, she would get up and go to the market. That was where we got our fresh meats. That's where she got her chitlins for Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? It was, yeah, Findlay Market was alive and it was energetic. There used to be, I guess there were little boys and girls, but they would sell shopping bags. And they were like, shopping bag, miss, 25 cents. And my mother liked going because I think, you know, she saw other people in the neighborhood.
Mom used to have her cart and we used to walk up to the Findlay Market every weekend. That was the routine. But then that was an experience within itself. You got all kind of shops into the Findlay Market. Your produce, your vegetables, you can get you some cookies, some baseball cookies. Wake up on Saturday morning after you clean up, mom got the music loud, y'all gonna walk to the market. I take my kids there now.
Findlay Market got started around the 1858, I think.
1852.
In those days, there weren't big grocery stores, obviously. And Findlay was just one market of many. And a lot of times people would shop every day or every other day because they had no refrigeration. So they were very active hubs of the neighborhood. And throughout the years when Over the Rhine was kind of neglected and had high poverty rates, Findlay Market seems to be a thread, though, that continued.
As far as like good farm to table food, yeah, no. But that's what we grew up with, you know. Now it's a thing, like farm to table. Oh, I grew up with, you know, farm to table.
It, you know, it wasn't marketed, it was just a thing.
Yeah, it was just a thing. It was just a thing.
You know, my brothers, them, they used to work on Findlay Market. They worked for this. His name was Phil for a long time, and I think they was probably about 7 or 8 when they started working for Phil. And so as they got grown, when he passed away, he gave it to them. When me and my sister didn't have to work, when we have our Saturdays off, we used to get up and go help them out. We'd get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, we'd set up the tent and put up the vegetables, and it was just awesome to do.
And for most cases, you from over the Rhine and I'm from the West End, most likely 9 times out of 10, our parents knew each other, okay? Now me and you may have been feuding as kids, you know, but our parents knew each other because they ran into each other where? At Findlay Market.
Well, you know, back when we first moved on Elm Street, black people are the ones that kept that market going. They would come as families, grocery carts, and shop. Where might buy 5 pounds of potatoes. Other people might buy 2 or 3 potatoes, 2 or 3 bananas. We're the ones, the black folks, the ones kept that market going all these years, and then they decided to turn over and stuff. All these breweries and drinking and all that stuff down there, you know.
Now, black people, when they lived around it, they didn't have a porch or patio to sit on, and they would sit in front of the places, but they would get a ticket for drinking, open a can of beer or whatever. Now they can go up there and walk up and down the street with beer. See it?
No way. Oh my gosh.
The people down there didn't own any buildings or anything. They rented from everybody. So therefore, when they sold the buildings or whatever, raised the rent or whatever, they had to move. And they bought all that property and stuff around there and moved everybody to Forest Park, and they couldn't get out from down there.
And I'm one of the people that get displaced. I've gotten displaced before.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I stayed on Broadway right before the construction for the casino. And they told me I had to move.
What kind of, like, how long did they give you? Like, did they give you like a certain timeline?
It was a couple months. It was a couple months. They gave me a check and said, here, this is where you're moving to.
African Americans are moving out of the South in the Great Migration, and they primarily settled in the West End. Before that time, Cincinnati was segregated to a point, but the African American population was relatively small.
Small might be an understatement. Of the 31,000 folks living in Over the Rhine in the 50s, only 400 were black, which is just over 1% of the population at the time.
Anytime it kind of rose up, there seemed to be some sort of riot, not by them, but against them, and they were often driven out of enclaves in the city. And this is during the time that the country is looking at its cities and saying, oh, who needs all these old buildings? Wouldn't it be better if we did urban renewal? And very often that meant putting highways through a very strong African American community with a good business center and churches and the whole community being split by highways. Also, the city of Cincinnati had this idea that they wanted this area west of the city center would be a good place for light industry. That never really happened, but what did happen were 25,000 families lost their homes.
I feel like I was one of the first group of people when they started trying to move people from downtown and get us on up out of there, however it works. Like, I can remember living downtown on Ray Street and my windows were like falling in. Once they did so many inspections on the building and they I guess it's not up to code, or so Section 8 came in and they said, we're gonna shut the whole building down. We're gonna give everybody in the building a voucher to go find a different, place to live.
So the voucher system was designed to help residents move out of the Over the Rhine and West End areas quickly so that redevelopment could get started. They were given about 3 months to find a new place to live, and the voucher helped cover part of the first month's rent and deposit. Though not every landlord accepted it. What was presented to residents as a fresh start in high opportunity neighborhoods turned out to be a bit more complicated in reality.
And so when they started that, it was like, we're like, this is amazing. We can take this and we can go anywhere. Because I never thought it was possible to live in Hartwell or Lockland or, any place other than where, I was from. But what I found out is when we take that voucher and we try to go to these places, now those places are the rundown places. Now those places are no longer what we considered the nice places when we were growing up. They didn't tell us the plan, the big picture. They didn't tell us like, we're trying to get you out of here so we can make this nicer for somebody else to be able to afford and come in and live. So for us, it's like, I just really jumped out the frying pan into the fire.
me, the previous version was family. It was friends. It was cousins. It was people. I mean, I think now it's like there are not even stands that sell vegetables. Like, I think there are only a few, but there was there was a couple, but back in the day, I mean, both sides of the Findlay Market were lined with fresh fruits and vegetables, and then of course you get all of your meats and all of that from inside. It's not bad, but still, it's like we have to remember where it all started.
You can go to Findlay Market now. You can go to a wine tasting. You can leave there and go buy you a rack of lamb. Then you can go over, if you catch it at the right time, go over there and do yoga. And the beauty of it, it's all in walking distance. Okay? You'll see people you ain't seen in years. But Findlay Market has evolved into something for everybody. And I mean everybody.
Some folks that I talk to feel sort of the opposite way. Like they feel like
They taking over, right? Because we're not showing up. If we show up, it'd be just as much as us down there with them, right? You know, who's to say that we can't go shop with them as well? And like, it's so many white people down here. Where your black people at? Why y'all not coming down either, right? You know what I mean? Nobody says you can't. Our money spent just as well as their money. It's green just as like their money as well. So if we get of our own space and out of our own head, man, we will be so much further ahead.
I don't know if it's just more internal. It just feels like somebody coming into your house and changing everything around and saying, "Oh, this is so much better than yours." Like, no, I like my old, whatever it was, or I like that pillow there, or that it was fine for me. Not to say the people that are there now or it's wrong or bad, because it's almost like they don't even they don't know. But yeah, in order for the essence to come back, or for something to come back to make Findlay Market, it would mean the people would have to come back.
America and Cincinnati still got quite a few divisions. But Findlay Market, just like back in the day, like I say, I can go down there and run into my 6th grade teacher, okay? And if I see him through a crowd and he see me, everybody in between is mystified when we greet. What's up, man? I ain't seen you in a minute. All that. And he's a white guy. He's an older white guy. And they looking at him like... In some cases, I like to think that generational curse of racism is broken, but it's still alive. The only place in Cincinnati that I've ever experienced when ain't nobody having that shit is Findlay Market.
Okay. So where do we go from here?
We have to get that initial hate of our heart or towards our own people first. You know what I mean? And then the perception from other people will change. And that's unfortunate, because other people can get it just walking out the door. It's handed to them, right? We have to earn it, right? So, but if we can give it to ourselves, black on black first, and then other people will have no choice to respect us and acknowledge us. Opposed to, we all have to be heroes just to get acknowledged, right? Yeah. Like, or a celebrity just to get acknowledged. What about my small work or small? I go to work every day. I'm a nurse every day. You know what I mean? Just something small every day can be acknowledged. Being a mom should be acknowledged. You know what I mean? Just getting your kids through high school. Yeah. I pat myself on the back for that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's the small stuff. I think we just have to start within ourselves.
When you're telling the stories of history, it's always important to see it from a variety of perspectives. Even if they're living in the same household, if one person is a domestic worker and one person is the owner of the house, they're living in the same space, but the story they tell is going to be completely different. And I think we have to recognize that history should be made up of all of the different perspectives, not just the one who wrote the book.
Do you think that we put too much emphasis on race and racism?
I think we certainly shouldn't forget. We shouldn't hold a grudge. I think, now I'm speaking to we as a people, we should not hold a grudge, but I think we should stay prepared, okay? Because just with some events that's happened in America this year has let us know it's still alive and kicking. The Bible says, be ye careful as to how you treat strangers, because you could be entertaining an angel. In other words, that verse says, don't mistreat that stranger standing on the corner, because you could be being tested. Okay? You might be being tested. I try to live by that philosophy.